I've met some amazing people on closed doors on places like Necker Island, former president and movement leaders. A lot of people see me in that world as a secret source behind greats, right? Some good leaders. So like Kiri-Maree Moore. My whole thing around building out any content is to get them into a conversation and into the next step with me.
No hustle, worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fading, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.
This is the Content Capitalist Podcast, and my name is Ken Okazaki. There are as many ways to make money with content as there are people doing it. So listen in as my clients, past, present, and future, unpack how they crack the code to making $1 million a year or more while capitalizing on their content. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, where I have deep dive conversations with people who are doing some really cool stuff and also creating some content and building their personal brand. So I've got someone with me in person. This is actually only the second time I have the privilege of being in person with my podcast guests, which is cool. We're in Okinawa, Japan, and they came all the way from Australia. We're just kind of hanging out at this Airbnb or hotel, I don't know, this condo, whatever. And I said, hey, let's do it. I've got the Go Box here. So we're just going to have a bunch of fun. Kiri-Maree Moore, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me.
Always a privilege to sit down and have a conversation with you, Ken. Can't wait.
Awesome. So before we jump into it and get started, I think that the audience would appreciate if you just kind of give an overview of what does he actually do and what kind of business do you run?
Yeah, so I get to run a couple of companies and one with someone very, very well. And so that's working with coaches and consultants and helping them to get to the $1 million, but then, the next million and the next million, whatever they really want to do, and build out that lifestyle empire that I think a lot of people want to do, but aren't sure how to get on that journey. So we kind of help them do that a lot. And then I get to work with, in a lot of spaces, it's working with leaders of industries who are wanting to narrow that gap from the short-term win to the long-term sort of solutions, right? A lot of people like playing in the short term, good at that, come up with some great ideas and then realize, oh my goodness, actually what we're building out, whether it's a system, teams, the thinking behind it isn't going to give the long-term solution. So I get to do that with a lot of amazing people across the global landscape.
Cool. Now you give a really great 30,000 foot view. Typically, let's just say if we were to condense down the coaching part of things, you said helping coaches get to $1 million. If you were to describe one, kind of an amalgamation of one person, what would that person be? 30s, 40s? What kind of business are they running? What kind of struggles
for the coaching?
Yeah, the coaching part.
So the coaching's really, is it?
Let's give them a name.
I don't know.
Or her.
Who do you think is? I mean, the coaching industry, so you tell me.
Yeah, but I'm interviewing you.
I know.
So you can give it to me.
Wow.
Okay. I'm going to give it a name.
It could be a young coach, right? It could be, it's not startups, it's business coaches, but it's more business coaches that are pretty much doing something and building out. Okay,
no,
right?
Alex. That could be a woman.
I like Alex.
Or a man.
Because we're not being gender specific now.
We have both. Right?
All right.
I think on this morning's call, I think it was almost evenly split, women and men on the call.
There you go.
But I didn't actually count. Let's say Alex, right? And so Alex is 30s, 40s, 50s.
Okay. 40s.
40s. Alex is in her 40s. His or her 40s. In their 40s. Their 40s.
Perfect. We love this.
And how long has Alex been actually coaching?
So Alex has probably been coaching for a couple of years, got a business, doing okay, maybe only just doing a couple of 100,000. Wants to get to the $1 million.
Is Alex working alone or does Alex have a team?
Alex probably has a VA, like a virtual assistant, but not much more than that, really slogging it out.
So decent profits then, right?
Yep. So the costs are probably quite low because there's only Alex and another team member, which is, from an area in which you don't have to pay the high prices either compared to if they had a face-to-face person, right? Yep. And wants to get to the $1 million and is trying to decide, do I want to build out this bigger brand. What do I need to do that?
Yeah.
Who would I need on my team to be able to do that?
And what are the kind of frustrations they might be facing at this stage in their business?
Yeah, so they're probably going, oh my goodness, I've got so much to do. I've got to be doing all the sales, doing all the marketing, trying to actually deliver for the clients. What do I do first to start getting that off my, leveraging that out and getting some team on board for that?
Got it. So we got Alex. Now, like if you are Alex, and I've never done this before, then there's going to be some links somewhere. You can find out more about how she works her manage to help
That's
Alex.
right.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side, where you've spoken with some like political leaders, you've spoken with people who are doing major movements socially. Tell me about that person or that group that you're trying to help more specifically. Who is this?
Okay, so that's either an amazing leader that you see doing a movement or in a political space, or it's a leader of an industry that is great in an industry. So in the, we know some amazing people in the coaching industry. You'd probably say Alex Hormozi is one of the greats in there, right? It's locating one of those and going, how can we make sure that what they're making, designing, and actually doing is going to help the everyday person? So like the coach, the Alex.
We'll call him Charlie. The next one.
The Charlie? Okay, so
Charlie's
going to go, how can I make sure that I'm innovating?
Yeah.
That I'm designing out, that I'm bringing solutions that are actually going to be helpful to the Alexes.
Got it. And you do that consultatively or through some kind of experiential thing? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So you can do VIP days. You can running small groups and innovation pods.
Yeah.
And looking at how we can have, I think a lot of it is getting the right stakeholders at the table as well, right? Going, who needs to be at the table so that we are having those conversations, knowing what does Alex actually need? What would be helpful if Alex had access to?
Yeah.
Right? And then going, oh, how can we make this more effective? That's Charlie, right?
Yeah.
And going, actually, this is how we're going to do it. And this is who we're going to invite to those tables.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, we kind of described, if I'm correct, because I'm a black belt in boardroom, right?
Yes.
But you're also doing something completely different outside of that. And that's what I'm talking about, like in the political realm and stuff. Tell us about that, because I think that a lot of people see you as, initially as like a supporting role.
Yeah.
At least the people that are in my community. Then there's a whole nother community where they are going to see you as the main character.
Yes.
Tell me about that world where you're the main character.
So it's funny, and the best way I know how to describe it is a lot of people see me in that world as a secret source behind greats, right? Some good leaders. So like Kiri-Maree Moore, right? And then on the other side of it, I get to be having those conversations, facilitating those conversations with people who are looking at the policies put in place, the organizations, the systems, the structures in which we do our everyday work, right? And going, how do we narrow? And that's where I look at not just short-term wins, which a lot of the time that's what you're doing in the coaching industry, right? It's looking at how do we make sure that these short-term wins is in an environment that's going to thrive. Like you look at the economic landscape across the globe and you go, there's some things that are working for it. There's some things not working for it. And it's those conversations that I get to be at the table with, help facilitate, and then go, we can disagree with everything, but we've got to figure out one thing that we could actually move that dial and start having conversations, putting in actions that are going to then work towards the long-term solution. So, yeah.
Now, this on that. Hey, you good? Cool. I'm curious to know, like, without breaking any NDAs, is there anybody you can mention that you?
Oh, that's the tricky piece. All I can say is that I've met some amazing people on closed doors on places like Necker Island. So you can just imagine this being former presidents and movement leaders there, and from that have worked with particular people. I can't say that and that is probably the hardest piece about my work in the advisory and strategy side on the global landscape.
You got to respect their position.
Yeah, and because part of it isn't like I'm never there to build up for what I can do, but if I can help create an opportunity where we can create safe spaces to give voice to the human race and then actually bring solutions, then I want to be in there. And so in a lot of those cases, I literally can't say who it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll respect that. Now, you're running two different businesses. They both have to do with helping the leaders to essentially lead better, right?
Correct.
And one is more of a commercial way, and the other is more like governmental, like institutional type of. Is it governmental institution? Like,
no, not really, because it's actually the business world as well. So it's kind of, if you think of it, it's like making the complex more simple. So it's going how in narrowing that gap. So we've got corporate, we've got entrepreneur world. How do we now get them talking to each other so that you can learn from each other and then bring the right solutions to the table? It might be global leaders and political leaders versus the business leaders going, how do we have more of those conversations? We want more, I get involved in a lot of conversations around more women at the table, gender at the table. So how do we do that if we're not even talking to each other? So I get to navigate that conversation to then figure out how do we do that better in the way that we build out our business, our companies.
It's so interesting how nowadays on social media, the things that inflame whatever small differences are between people are what the algorithm is going to push because it gets more engaged, right? And when you're not seeing someone in person, then it's so easy to be a fucking maniac warrior, attacking everything. And one of the best pieces of content I've seen over the past few years was the Heineken ad series, where they brought people who they brought a white supremacist and then somebody who wasn't actually black, but I think they had very opposite views. Yeah, they brought an abortion activist versus pro-life, all these opposites, but they, without describing what that one key point of difference was, they just had to have a 15-minute chat over a beer, and it was a Heineken ad. Of course, they had to have beer, and these guys just totally clicked. Yeah. And then afterwards, they revealed, did you know that this person is this, this person is that? How do you feel about it now? And, 9 out of 10 times, it's like, it's cool. We're still friends, Yeah. And that's the thing. I believe what you said there, helping people communicate. Entrepreneurs, they want to demonize the corporate. Like, we're entrepreneurs, right? And corporate's just like, they have the opposite attitude, right? These guys aren't really legit. So I love what you're saying there, bring them to the table. How is it that you do that? Like, what's your modality? Usually it's around, firstly, a theme or a topic in which is going to help that person be able to get better results at the table or go to their next level, right? So if we go into the business world, often we want growth at the table. Here's the thing that I know has shown up as results and patterns in the past. We get the same people at the table and we keep getting the same results. We want people to go, yes, Ken, you're amazing, you're awesome, your ideas are fantastic. What I love is if you could actually invite people that think differently to you, people that look different to you, and people that come from different perspectives. Yeah. Why? Because you might actually learn something different and then go, oh, I never thought of that. I'd love to put that into action. That's how you're going to get different results, right? And that's on any topic, anything. So it's going, who are the stakeholders that actually could be at that table that maybe we haven't thought of inviting before? And how could we have a conversation? And we've got to learn how to have uncomfortable conversations, right? We've got to learn to not, and I think this is something that I'm seeing a lot right now, is we're not good at disagreeing, right? And that's why we don't invite other people at the table, because how do we navigate that? How do we do that? It could get the risk of getting uncomfortable is something that we were just like, I'll just stick with the people I know, right? Correct. But then we keep getting the same results. So what if we want to get to that next economic growth or that next access to being able to go to our next level? Yeah. But the thing is, it's so interesting because, like the whole point of Black Belt is about marketing, right? And one of the core tenets of marketing, which I'm guilty of, which almost everybody I know is guilty of some level, is like polarize your audience, like make it like us versus them. And it just flat out works in marketing. But what you're talking about here is like a more inclusive approach. And I think Richard Branson, like you said on Neck Island, is one of those people that's like, he hasn't really, well, he did in a way polarize when he was up and coming, like him versus corporate, right? Like he's the maverick and then the establishment is the enemy. And that was his shtick. But he doesn't really do that anymore because he's kind of become the establishment. Same with Apple.
But don't you think we're more willing to actually be able to understand that it's okay to be different? Like, I think that's the bonus right now, is it's okay to be different. I was born and growing up, it was not a good thing to be different. I was always different. I thought differently. I looked different, and it wasn't. Now, guess what? Those differences are my uniqueness. That's my genius zone, right? That I bring to the table. It hasn't always been that space across the globe where we get to do that. It's more, there's a more willingness to actually accept that now. And so it's okay to bring that to the table. What we don't know is when we have those conversations and we disagree, that it's actually not a personal attack. Yeah. It's just a different thinking. And you don't need to think and believe and trust in anything that I say, but we've got to figure out one thing that maybe you do that we could work on so that actually we change what's happening. So much sense.
That's a good pivot, what you just said there about, you didn't grow up this way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about before, because right now, in case you guys didn't know, maybe you could say for yourself, you're running like a multi-8-figure business. You're influencing very, very high-level, high-profile people. And I think that some people listening might be like, well, that's her and I can never do that. Talk about before, when I know there was a time when it wasn't all like, there were struggles. Let's go back there. What did that look like before you kind of found this trajectory on the current business and the two things that you're running right now?
And firstly, can I just be clear? It's not all a bed of roses even to this day, right? I just think everyone thinks that because you've got more money or because you look a different way or, that all those challenges all go away. They don't. They're just different at different levels. And I wasn't born into access to even people supporting me and people encouraging me to be whoever you're meant to be. That was not the environment that I grew up in. It was very, very different. And in fact, I was told you'll never amount to anything. You'll never get, whatever you do, don't ever write, don't ever speak, sort of thing. Just get on with life enough that you can get through, kind of thing, right? And I played a lot throughout my growing up and career that I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be. And so I was a model at one point. I went into, I thought I was going to be a singer at one point. I've been in the fitness industry. I've worked for many, many years. I was a youth speaker. So I spoke a lot with young people and working with projects in the community for young people, street kids, prostitutes, you name it. I worked with gangs. It was, the front line of humanity. And it was at that point in my life that I realized that I became quite fascinated with patterns and realized that it didn't matter if you had access to lots of things. It didn't matter if you had access to nothing. It mattered what you did with what you've got. And I wanted to figure out, what if you could hack the system of how you think, how you act, and actually get the results? Because I was amazed that some people, were born into amazingness, went far, others didn't. Yeah. Then others who weren't given, looking like they had smarts or looking like they had everything, were able to then, go and do amazing things. So I was like, what were the differences? And that's been my fascination, because I'm like, if we can do it better and more effective, then I'm in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And was there like a certain event that was kind of a turning point where you started finding or looking for these patterns?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was a youth speaker, like I said. And I was speaking on a lot of stages and then also working with a lot of projects. And what bugged me was that it was awesome when I was there. It was awesome when I was involved with it. And these young people changed their lives. No, they didn't really. Here's the thing. What I realized was I was band-aiding. I wasn't giving them the resources, the tools, helping them to develop the actual changes that needed to be changed, because they would default back as soon as, you know, to the old patterns, as soon as I was no longer there. And so I was like, how can I make sure that we're not defaulting back, but actually changing those patterns so that the results at the table change? And that was where I was like, I'm wasting my time otherwise. And I don't know, as a mom, and I've got 6 kids now and, you know, a few grandbabies as well. And I know that time is precious. And I was like, if I'm going to spend my time serving outside of my family, I want to make sure I'm doing that well and as effectively and as, you know, like with the greatest impact that I could.
Perfect.
Yeah.
1 second, I'm going to close that door. Be right back. And we're back. Okay. And okay. I remember the last thing you said.
The biggest impact.
Yes. All right. And we're back. Like my body was back, but my brain is still
so good.
Okay. Kiri-Maree, I am really interested in one thing, and you just brought up about the kids, right? A whole bunch of kids. You spent a lot of time traveling with the kids while running the business, and that's a lot of stuff going on, like a lot. Tell me, like, what? First of all, where did this idea come from, and why did you guys do it? And are you still doing it right now?
Yeah. So the nomadic side of our lives, which you mentioned, is something that
because that's up front on social media and everything, you know, like
correct,
all the photos. And I think that was actually a big draw to you and Taki as a couple who are leading a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
Being nomadic and having kids. Like a lot of people, they might feel like they could do one, but all 3 simultaneously feels like a lot.
Let me tell you, it is a lot. So I concur on that one. And what is funny about it is that initially it was Taki that was like, I'm going nomadic. So basically, if I wanted to go with Taki, then I needed to be nomadic as well. So that was, to be honest, the very initial thing. And because as a mom, and we've got special like needs in our family as well. So it just put a little bit of an extra bent on traveling, running companies, and, you know, doing life well and being healthy and, you know, actually having fun, because it's not just about work and it's connecting and it's doing all those other things. And I was like, how do I do that? What would that need to look like? So I just went, and that was basically how I asked myself the question, right? When we initially did it, was like, how can I make sure that as a family we're growing and make it fun and also use it as a, hey, this is going to be a springboard also for business as well, right? And I just embraced it. And what was funny about it was by the end of it, I was the one that wanted to continue. And Taki and the kids were like, okay, we're good. Can we stay home for a little bit? And so it was a really funny turnaround in that way. It was hard. We had to learn ways in which to make family home while you're on the road. And then to time block became so important. Making sure that the times that we allocated to work, we were really dedicated to and made that work. And then we would just do one adventure a day kind of thing where we would go out and take the kids out, because they also found moving all the time a lot. Now, Taki wanted to move places a lot. And I mean a lot, so more than one a week kind of thing. And that became so hard. It was so rough. I wanted to stay in places for like 6 weeks and get immersed in culture, because I love that. I don't like being a tourist. I love connecting and just figuring out how does this really work if you were behind the scenes of a culture? And it's the human side of it, right? Like, I love that. And so by the end of it, we stayed longer in places, and that was way easier.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think that while you were doing it, you guys were creating content along the way, whether it's
absolutely photos,
or
videos
of like getting coffee, or going for a swim in the Mediterranean. And I think that really built a multidimensional kind of persona online. Then people, like a lot of the clients that come in, and myself at one point, I felt like you guys were a real family who were doing real things, and you can't just Photoshop and fake this stuff for very long. Like, it's too exhausting, you just can't. So that helped me feel like these guys are doing something real, and I wanted to be a part of it, which is why I initially came in contact with you guys. So you guys did a really good job there. I want to pivot a little bit into content, right? This is called the Content Capitalist Podcast. And the reason I created this is because, as you know, I'm a content creator as a business. The biggest question I get from clients is, how am I going to make money with this? And I turned blue in the face explaining all the different ways. And then I thought, well, why don't I just start asking people who are actually making money and making content and share their stories? So I know that you have a very, very specific type of person who you help in your business you do.
Yeah.
What's your thought process around creating content, and how are you seeing that work as far as like meshing with your business, whether it's bringing in new clients, nurturing ones you have, or just building your message or your persona? Like, give us.
Yeah. And I think actually for me, it's been such a journey to do that well, because when you're kind of pioneering something that's a little different, that you're wanting people to understand new concepts or thinkings, like we've heard words, but this is how I'm thinking about it. This is what I'm doing, right? It's kind of hard to bridge that gap. And I often think that it's easy when you're talking about leads, when you're talking about sales, or you're talking about things people relate to easily, right? You can do videos on that till you're black and blue, I believe. But when you're talking about something that's a little bit different and want people to get something in a way that doesn't scare them off, but they get curious, I had to kind of go, what would I need to do for that to happen? And I thought, well, I can't speak for someone else, but I can speak from me. So a lot of my videos now are coming from, say, things like, I believe that as a leader, this is what I stand for. And they can go, oh, I like that, or I don't like it, and I'm okay with that. Or it's going, what are you hearing as you're in a meeting or having a conversation, say when we're walking to the gym and we're having a conversation, it triggers off a thought, and I go, we have that conversation. Someone else might want that conversation too. So then I'll do a video on that, a short one. So basically I'm going, what are the everyday thinkings or conversations I'm having to do with what I'm doing, which is a bigger concept, maybe deep for a lot of people, and bringing that. And the other piece I'm doing, which I think is made it really good to connect with my audience in a way that has been a lot more effective, and that is that I'm going, like with my journey and the physical, I was in a wheelchair, told I'd never get out of a wheelchair. And so part of my journey is getting from wheelchair to stage right now. And so sharing that journey, sharing some of what I think is the mentality or the thinking or the mindsets or the strategies that I use, that, by the way, if I do that in my physical, you could go do that in your business. Yeah. You could go do that too and think that way. And so teaching from my experience is helpful too.
Inspirational. How do you know if you're winning at this?
Yeah. So I personally have internal indicators, but I think it's also external indicators. And for me and my work right now, I've created, and we've just done a soft launch on this, but it's called the 1% shift movement. And so I'm saying, if you do your 1% shift, whatever that is out there in this world, I do mine, Tom does his, Alex does his or hers, whoever Alex is, Charlie does theirs, then actually those 1% shifts will change from those short-term wins to actually bringing some long-term solutions at the table. And I go, so for me, that's an external way in which you can see, right, that we're doing some changes. It's getting those conversations and then sharing those photos, because I can tell you when I'm in those conversations and I just have a photo and then I just say, hey, we've been learning about this, I'll get messages behind the scene going, hey, next time you're there doing that, can I come? Or when are you coming to our part of the world? Can you run something like this here? So it's just, again, using your life, your everyday things, and making sure you're capturing it, whether in a photo or in a video or just a thought. I do a lot of, hey, here's just an insight, or in some cases, brain farts, right? Like those quick little thoughts. And people can either love it or not. I think you've got to get used to right now, again, like the uncomfortable conversations, you've got to realize there's people that are going to love you and there's people that don't, and this is how I'm going to show up. One of the things I did, and I think this was really helpful, and I always say this when clients ask me, how do you get, things out on video? I did the worst video ever as my first video on purpose. In other words, I just come from the gym, I was sweaty, like my hair was messy as, and I did that on purpose. Because anytime I can get on video from that moment onwards has to be a bonus, and it doesn't stop you. And for me, I'm not always going to be able to get into a studio. I'm not always going to be able to do it professionally because we're on the road, and I didn't want that stopping from getting my information out.
So much sense. The first one, getting it out there is like, for some people that's 90% of the effort, is just getting the first video out. For some people it's not, but I think for those who haven't yet, but they know they need to, is that the importance of just getting something out there so that they could say they are a content creator. Like, your identity changes.
Yeah.
You're now not a consumer, you're a producer. Or you can still be a consumer, but you cross the line to, you're adding to the conversation. You're not just consuming. And now you have a voice. You have a seat at the table. Yeah. Even if it's a small one.
Correct.
You have a seat at the table.
Well, reality is, if you're putting videos out, that table is really big that you're actually having a seat at, right? Because you've got access to so many people and a platform. And if you're feeling like you're not able to get that out, there's something to be said about knowing and mastering your art of what you bring, because it's so easy to do videos when you know what you're talking about. Yep. So I do think there's a mastery piece that is easy to turn on that video. I think you've got to stop thinking that the world is judging you. It probably is, but you've got to stand up and go, hey, this is what I am willing to stand up on and stand in, and bring that, and realize that I'm a reformed perfectionist. And, perfectionism did stop me for many, many years because I wanted to show up, look a certain way, sound a certain way. And I've realized that, for me to bring it out in a way more effective way is just to show up as me every day. And sometimes I'm dressed up, sometimes I'm going to the gym, sometimes got my cap on, and it's okay, because that's Kiri-Maree out there just doing her thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, when you're looking at the way you're creating content, what's the goal behind it? Because I think that there's two main schools of thought. One of them is building your brand and like authority, reaching more people, getting your message out.
Yeah.
The other is, how can this turn into cash in the bank
for
you or for your business? Mm-hmm. Could you tell me about how's that?
Yeah, I think I'm very much the strength around the give, where we just give. You can never overgive content out to the world, I believe. In other words, it's touch points, right? People get to know, and there's different pieces of what you're bringing out to the world that maybe someone connects to, but they need to hear it lots to maybe build that trust to then get into a conversation. My whole thing around building out any content is to get them into a conversation and into the next step with me, whether it's just to get them on a call. I'm an introvert naturally, and so I actually did podcasts And one of them in particular, the Decision Table podcast, I designed because of two things. One, I wanted to do something. I always think that if you say something, you've got to role model that. And so for me was, hey, it doesn't matter who you are, what industry you are in, how you look, we could learn one thing from each other. So that's always my question at the end of that is, hey, Ken, from our conversation today, what's the one thing you're taking from it? Mm-hmm. And I do the same thing. So we always can take something from it. And the other piece was this. I don't know about you, but as an introvert, I found it so difficult having those conversations when people go, oh, I know this person, you should talk to them. Okay, great. What do I talk to them about? Like, where do we start with this conversation, right? And the other side of it is, this person needs to work with you. Fantastic. Okay. And so I figured, what if I got them on the decision table and I get to know you and you get to know me, and then I can figure out what's the next best offer if we were to continue in this relationship. And that was the best strategy I ever had. So it became very much for me a great way to build new partnerships, to get that person into the next piece of whatever conversion.
Okay. Love it. So are you still doing that podcast right now?
Yeah, we've just had I've just taken a break because we had a whole lot of new stuff happening with one of those companies, and I needed to put a lot of time into that. So I stopped the old season, and as I'm building my new brand of what the evolution is of what I'm doing, then it gave it a nice little break. So we're literally about to do the next season of both the podcasts that I'm doing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'll give you if you're switching seasons, and is there like a theme change or anything like that, or like a different direction?
I think it's just making sure that, like, for me, the Global Human Intelligence podcast is, if you do love the deeper thinking, the thought leader side of me and who I get to work with, or how I can go down those deep ways to get different strategies and solutions at the table, then that's a good platform for me to be able to get that out to the world for those that want to listen to that level, and to hear from some of the people, like you said, that I get to hang out with, spend time with, that I just feel sometimes I'm selfish that I get to have those conversations and I can't share it with the world. So that's my way of being able to share it with the world, of having some of those conversations as well. Whereas the decision table is more like, a lot of people who I meet are fantastic, maybe not doing it's more the coaches, the consultants, the speakers that have something that we could all learn from, but maybe not at the space or the level of the other one. Yeah.
Does it ever happen where you get a guest on there and after the conversation, whether it's right afterwards or sometime after, they pay you to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what happens. And one of the things that we're building out behind the scenes right now, a lot of the partnerships that's coming in off that has come off the podcast. Yeah. So there's some exciting things from that as well.
Yeah. The thing about podcasts that I love is, like, if I were to just ring you, even though we've known each other for years, I would just ring you up and say, Kiri-Maree, can I just have an hour of your time? Because I just want to, chat. You'd probably look at your schedule and it's like, is this guy fucking kidding me? Like,
exactly.
But then it's like, let's do a podcast. It feels different. We're also speaking in such a way so that what we're saying is not only informational for each other, but in a format that somebody can learn more about you and me at the same time. And it just serves a bigger purpose. Therefore, people are way more willing to get on a podcast. And I just changed out the intro to my podcast, actually. And what I said is I have deep dive conversations with clients, past, present, and future. So I have past clients, current ones. And then I loosely say future because, until I die, it's possible, right? And a lot of them do become clients. And some of them, I'm just going to say, it's in the future. It'll happen. And we'll see.
I like that.
And that kind of pre-frames
speaking it into being.
Yes. So I think that's how podcasts can be looked at. You're just talking with clients, past, present, and future. And
like any potential client always starts with a conversation. Podcasts are only just conversations. We just press record and what I love about podcasts is, and going back to why I did the decision table as well, the fact that I didn't like having conversations with people I didn't know, because I didn't know where I'm taking it necessarily. And one of the things I love about the decision table podcast for me was the fact that I could then have these conversations and I can at the end of it go, hey, I've loved this conversation. Thank you for this. Or go, oh my goodness, I want to know this person more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or like there's this real connection and you just know it's going to go. Or you could, like, while I'm talking, go, oh, this is what we could connect on, collaborate on, and then partnership on, right? Yeah. And I love that, because I would never get those deep conversations by just asking back and forward on a phone call. But because you see them in their element, you see them in their genius zone, you get to like just get to know them in a way deeper and much faster, deeper way.
Yeah. Where do you get your ideas for what to talk about?
So I'm a big visionary in a way. I'm crazy in a way that I get to play on both sides of my brain. So there's a side of me, of course, that's analytical, strategic, very data driven. I love data because it gives you ideas of what's happening and what's not happening, right? Like you can identify gaps. But on the other side of it, I'm a big visionary. I go for walks. I go for my gym workouts are one of my best spots right now where I get my creative ideas from. I'm very much a visual and kinesthetic, the combination learner. So I love through experience. So if we go to the gym, I love the fact that I'm doing these really hardcore exercises and exercise regime right now. I'm learning through that. I then think, oh, how could I put that in play? What I'm learning there into other things. So that's very experiential. But then there's the other side. I'm very visual. I love art. I love beautiful places and nature. It sends off these creative things in me. And I just go into innovation and creative. And I also see, when I see need, the thing that I don't do is go, oh, there's so many problems, Ken. Oh, the problem. I've heard that so many times. I go into, oh, now that I see that as a problem, what solution would I bring if it was me having to bring something at the table? And so then I just start dreaming about that.
Got it. And when you create your content with these ideas, are you typically going to, like, in an organized fashion, like batch everything together at once, or is it kind of like a thought comes out, you pull out your phone, you say a little something?
Yeah, I think I'm more the create. I know what the main areas are that I am about. I always say, I teach about the fact that you've got to have your non-negotiables and your negotiables. I know what my non-negotiables are. So what I stand for, what I believe in, what I want to teach around or train around or facilitate around. And then there's the there's the negotiables. In other words, if maybe I don't know what I don't know yet, right? It's those moments. And I just think if I'm in that moment and I've just been in a place that maybe someone else hasn't been, what are my learnings from that? Yeah. And then I go, what am I taking from that? And then it's from those learnings, I go, oh, I could do one video on that. And I don't really know what I'm going to say before that, but I know what I want from the video. And so it'll be just around that one learning. And by the time I finish having a conversation, it kind of just comes out. And then, it's looking at, I don't know, photos or amazing places, just triggers off a thought, or hanging and having a conversation with someone. I'm like, oh, I loved what Ken and I spoke about. And then I'll just do a quick video on that. Or I'll go, what if we talked about something, it opened up a conversation, and then I go, and this is where I would take that thought. And so then I'll do a video on that. So videos, photos, I take a lot of photos. I'm quite well known for my little photos within my little world. And so I always say, what is the moment the curated moment, right? Yeah. And if I look at that photo, what does that remind me of? What was I thinking at that time? And that thought or writing, whether it's written or whether it's verbal on a video.
Okay.
Comes from it.
Now, you're in the business of helping coaches to perform better. And whether or not you're going to say this to their face, you have seen some really cringy, crappy, scammy looking stuff from good people.
Sure.
Right? Give me some examples of things that you see in the coaching space where people are advertising things and it just makes you like smack my head. Like,
yeah.
I cannot believe they're doing this again.
Yep. Copycat.
Okay.
That is one of the things that really gets me, because we are, as a human race, we're forgetting how to think for ourselves. And that's something I always talk about, right? Like, what if humans could think for themselves and make smarter decisions? I get so annoyed with the fact that people have to copy, use frameworks, but put it through your lens. And then,
When you say copycat, is that like following a trend or like
everything from actually copying the same look, smell, feel, saying whatever they're saying content-wise. I see that so much, and I see it a lot in the coaching world, right? And it annoys me because I think I love what Ken brings that no one else can bring what Ken brings. Or I love what Kiri-Maree brings. Yeah. It's different, and I want that difference. I get so tired of seeing the same things and people complaining about the same results.
How do you recommend that people, like, if someone knows deep down inside that they're being a bit of a copycat, how should, like, maybe they struggle with coming up with ideas that are original to themselves or something like that? How do you recommend they get out of that?
Surround yourself with people that actually have great ideas so that you can feel stimulated, because I think there's always that. If you get sort of stuck in a, I love working with different industries. And the reason being was that coaching industry thinks like coaches.
Yes.
I love SaaS industry. I love corporate. I love all the different industries. I love design, right? Why? Because you can learn the way they think. I love fashion industry. I think it's fascinating how they design things out. And actually, the way that I think is very similar to a lot of the fashion lines, how they think about it with their boards and create the next sort of item that they want. What if we could learn from each other that's different in that way? So there's a stimulation, I think, getting outside your industry. I think the other thing is confidence. Yeah. Oh my goodness, so many people coaching other people. The reason they turned into a life coach, I'll leave it on life coach, or whatever coach it is, right, is because often they needed it themselves. Don't teach or be an expert of something unless you've done the work and you can bring it in mastery, because I think copying comes when we lack the confidence, when we don't value our own work or what we bring, and we don't think outside of the frameworks that everyone's offering.
And if you do, and I know that, like, there's this theory that everything is a remix. There's nothing new.
I know. I don't agree with that, but
that's why I said there's a theory.
I know.
There's a theory, not mine. However, I like right now,
I'm hearing it a lot right now, by the way.
I'm in the middle of putting together this program. It's a case study cohort, and everything is about video and video performance, and everything in there is original. But then the guys inside the program, they kept asking me, could you teach us about making offers? And I guess because they've seen a few things I've done and they bought the program I'm in. So obviously, they think I'm good enough that they're going to pay money for it. They're just like, could you teach us how to do that? But as I started putting together, I realized like everything I'm putting in there is something I learned from 3 key people.
Right.
And so then at the beginning of this module I made, which is about half an hour long, I just said, hey, first of all, I'm a video guy. I also happen to have created a few offers that you guys like. Everything you're about to see in here, I learned from 3 key people.
Which is beautiful.
And number 1, $100 million offers, Alex Hormozi, that helped me.
Yes.
Number 2, Kiri-Maree Moore, and in that program, seeing him put together a lot of great offers. And the 3 is James Kemp. I took a couple courses from him. And then everything I put in there, I could trace it back to where I learned it. But I didn't feel like I wanted to set myself up as the authority in building offers, since there are people who do a much better job, a much more
fantastic.
I just take these slivers out. And I feel like for me, that's the way to go, is if it's not my wheelhouse, but it's something I'd happen to be good at or happen to have had some success I just say, this is what I learned from so-and-so.
Yeah.
I'm remixing it into what's going to apply for you today, right now. I think that's okay. But people who pretend
I totally think that's okay, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think when that's, so maybe you're the person that collates all of the information from other people that are able to then put it in place and do your thing. I'm not that person. Like, I don't hear anyone else teaching around human intelligence like I'm teaching. And I don't hear people facilitating the uncomfortable conversations like I'm doing, right? So I'm bringing some conversations to the table and strategies to the table that I'm not hearing other people do. So it's easier for me in that way to just bring my things. I have to then learn how to communicate it in a way that people can bridge the gap from maybe what they're not hearing to what they are hearing, right? In your case, you are talking about a lot of things that there is a lot of information around.
Yeah.
And what I love is I talked about this at the event with Jason Everett, because he's really good at giving kudos to the people that he's learnt things from. And I admire that side, but most copycats are not doing that, right? And in your area, you're pulling on a lot of smart people, but going, hey, this is what's worked. I learned it initially at someone else's. So, it's a different ball game when it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to check the clock. I don't know how long we've been going.
Quite long.
11:17. So how long have we been going? I just don't want this to be too short or too long.
We could do it in a little series.
Yeah, we could. 50. Okay. Thanks. All right. So something I'm really curious about. There was one thing that you've seen happen in the industry, kind of makes you cringe. What are you seeing people doing well? Like, when you see it's like, that's the kind of person I want to follow, and that's the kind of thing that kind of turns me on. Yeah,
I love that. Turns me on. The thing that really does is when people are willing to use, and I think in the coaching, I don't know that I'm seeing this as much, but I'm definitely seeing this in the global space a lot right now, where we know we are stronger when we bring our geniuses together. Yeah. So collaboration, I know it's like this big word where people go, oh, that's lovely. But reality is collaboration, I believe, is the answer to us growing things at a much faster pace and to be able to actually make a bigger impact, right? And so what I love is when people give kudos and partner up and join networks together to do projects or to launch things together. And I love when I see that, because I think we have, for so long in coaches, I see this a lot, where there's, and the older little thing that happened a few years ago with shutting down the world kind of moment, with COVID, that isolation became a big topic. And I think that is something that you see a lot in whatever industry. Mm-hmm. And what I love about collaboration is seeing people just walk in their geniuses and combining that, but collaborating in a way that is actually kind of healthy. Like, it's fun doing projects with people. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've got to a stage personally that I can do things on my own, but I love collaborations. I love partnerships. Yeah. And I love it because I love working on things with someone else, and whether that's online or face-to-face. And I think we are getting to a point, particularly as remote is becoming such a part of our world and isn't going away overnight, like it really is, and it's going to be continuously a part of as the world kind of gets smaller, being global. Yep. And we have to learn how to do things more together, because otherwise that isolation feel is going to get stronger, right? So I love seeing that. I love seeing people joining networks together, realizing we're not in competition, but together we can be collaborative.
Yeah. That's for sure. And are you seeing this like like people in different industries, or mostly like coaches with coaches, or coaches?
Seeing it in different industries particularly, but like, so in the coaching, I'm seeing it a little bit. In leadership, I'm seeing it a lot right now. And when looking at global issues and getting global, like whether it's political leaders, whether it's actually industry leaders within that, there's a lot more going, hey, we're doing this, you're doing that. How can we join those together to actually make a difference? Because otherwise what we're seeing is, there's coaches that are making it. There's business entrepreneurs, owners, entrepreneurs, whatever you identify as, right? That are making it and doing really well. And there's, of course, those that are not. Mm-hmm. And so how do we make sure that we're not leaving people behind and giving them ways in which they can come together? And I think the best way to do that is when we join networks and make that happen together, because there's skills that you bring that can really help, say, in the leadership arena, right? And leaders getting their work, what they're doing in their platform out to the world need more of what you're doing. So there's power in when we join that together. Yeah.
And it's true. Like, I've never taken on a client who was also doing the same thing I do. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. But even if they are, like, I work with a lot of people that are doing, well, they're not talking maybe the way I talk or about the content that I talk about, but they're definitely in arenas that are very similar.
Yeah.
But we're not in competition. There's no one else, and thank the Lord, there's no one else quite like me, because there's only room for only one of me in this world.
Now, you've been in a lot of these rooms with leaders.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the biggest difference in how they act and behave versus people who aspire to be there but are just not making progress? Like, what are you seeing might be the difference maker?
Yeah, it's funny because, there's a lot of trend right now in conversation around just do one thing. And I agree that there's a lot of people that need to do the one thing because they can't move things. Do the one thing. What's the next one thing you need to work on? Do that well. And if it works, keep doing it, right? And then there's others who are at different levels of thinking and doing and work in a different way. If we just did the one thing, oh my goodness, I would get so bored, Ken, if I just did one thing, right? Hey, do one thing, don't do anything else, just do that one thing. I'll go jump off there now. Like, seriously, that would just drive me nuts. So my brain loves working on many things and moving those forward. And I think that's the thing. You've got to understand how you work. You've got to understand how the people around you work and who you're wanting to connect with and work with. And then you've got to understand at the capacity in which you can do that too, right? Yeah. So the thing that I learned so beautifully from Richard Branson, and I will never forget this because this changed my life. And that was the day when I asked him a question and I said, hey, Richard, like, you get so many opportunities across the table, whether it's buying the next company, whether it's the next initiative, whatever that is, the next idea, right? How do you know which one to do? And I will never forget it because he just turned around and he said, Kiri-Maree, I don't go, what do? I go, who in my world do I know that does that one? Could do that, could run that. And I think it depends how you look to what you can do and how you can do it. But I know I can do many things if I surround myself with awesome humans that could actually do that, run that piece, be able to manage that piece, whatever it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you have surrounded yourself with a lot of
they're amazing,
very capable,
amazing humans.
And and that's actually one of the reasons why I think a lot of people stick around the communities that you're either involved in or that you've built, because of the mutual connections, the mutual support, and the collective intelligence.
Correct.
I like that collective intelligence.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
But that is the smartness though, right? Like when you've got smarter humans making smarter decisions, guess what that does? It rubs off on you.
Yep.
And you go, oh, hey, I could make a decision like that, right? Or it gives you confidence because you go, hey, I know it worked for that person over there. I'm going to do something similar. Yeah. Or you have a conversation with them and you go, hey, Richard, this sounds like a crazy idea. And I remember having that crazy, I thought I was losing the plot because I thought very differently to the people around me. And I was wanting to build out an ecosystem, not just a business or a company, right? And I remember having the conversation with Richard. I'm embarrassed to think about it now because honestly, it did not make sense. I make sense a lot more now because I'm able to communicate what I do and how I do it. At that time, I was rambling, and I mean rambling. And I'm so embarrassed, but for him to see me, and he goes, and he came up to me just out of the bushes, and literally I was walking with a couple of people, a couple of leaders, and he came out of the bush and he just punched me on the arm, and he goes, you. And he punched me again. He goes, you are extraordinary. And I was like, wow. He saw me, he heard me, he understood me. And when he also then said about that comment that I just said earlier, I was like, oh, I'm not thinking big enough now. I can think even bigger. Yeah. So it's amazing when you surround yourself with people that are thinking at levels that maybe you're not at yet, but you want to be. Or that they've got thinkings that you've not thought about. Because you don't know what you don't know, but I always think when you do, there's a responsibility. So I love the fact that we get to hang out with smart people. We get to do life. You talked about the nomadic, but nomadic across the globe, one of the bonuses of that is we know a lot of people across the globe and we get to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got a lot of relationships and connections and networks that then we can share with other people. Yeah. So we've got more value to bring to the table, not just what we bring as an individual, but as a collective.
Yeah, yeah. There's something I used to have to tell my clients all the time, and not so much anymore, but they'd say like, I'm doing this event, you know, I need it to look amazing. I need it to look like this, that, the other. And they send me these references, like somebody else's event, they want it to look like that. And the thing I had to figure out how to graciously tell them is like, if you want us to make you look like, you know, cool shit, then you got to actually do cool shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first step. You actually
know someone that does do cool shit.
Well, like for example, some of them, like, you know, like there's shots of like a drone shot or like at a beautiful resort, and then they're in a basement of a hotel. I'm just like, or
not going to work.
You know, like or fireworks on the stage, and then they've got no stage. Like, you know, they send me the reference and that. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that by living a life where you're doing cool stuff, like traveling the world, hanging out with cool people, you know, doing cool hobbies, then that makes it easier to create content that's engaging and interesting and makes you a more interesting person.
So funny you say that, because I cannot tell you how many people said to us, why do you not have a camera crew with you as you travel the world? And we thought we were boring. So it's so funny that you say that, because we were like, we're just doing our thing. Like, honestly, we get up, I always say, because team would go, oh, but you guys are traveling, so you're not going to be able to do meetings and things like that. I'm like, just think of it. It's just a different location for our office. It's just a beautiful location, right? And that's what we had to teach people, was that, you know, we are still working. We're living life. We're just doing it at a beautiful location with our family. And I don't know that it was that exciting, you know, we didn't feel like we had all the time a lot to talk about, because it was just getting up again and working in a different place. But I think what it did do was it was exciting for people to see you in different locations. It was exciting to see where they having their meeting today, or like, you know, I remember one time we had to quickly arrive at port so that Taki could do a webinar off the back of the boat, and then the boat needed to move. So while he's on that webinar, they're moving the boat and he's hanging off the back end of it. And that was kind of cool, fun for people to see that, right? Behind the scenes. So yeah, I guess in that way we had some, and we continue to have some awesome moments because we get to connect. But I think it's often people are going, how would we do that? And they see themselves in that, oh, she's still keeping healthy and exercising. Oh, she just goes to a gym like in Croatia. I went to an underground gym, right? Like, it was kind of cool, and it was in a bunker. And they're like, oh, so it is possible. Or, oh, they're running meetings off the back of the boat, or, you know, off a bed in the middle of a tiny little apartment in Japan or something, you know. and making it happen no matter what. And I think it's those moments that made it more human and possible.
Yeah. That's cool. I always try to come up with cute ways to say things. And you just said no matter what. I'm just like, why don't you do no matter what .com with
perfect.
Nomad.
Yeah.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Very good.
I got to wrap this up, but for my audience, if you're watching till the end, then what I'll say is that if you've come all the way here, we've been probably talking for over an hour. There's got to be something about Kiri-Maree, my guest here, who has she's spoken to you, connected with you on some level. So for that person, what's the best way for them to connect with you or to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on all kind of social medias. So reach out anywhere on there under Kiri-Maree. We're doing an evolution of a lot of websites right now. So I don't really want to send people to most of those right now. But there is one thing, and that is join the 1% Shift movement. And if you go there, follow that, you'll find me anywhere.
Okay, how do they find the 1% Shift movement?
Yeah, go to the 1% Shift movement.com.
The 1% Shift movement.com.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put a link down below. If you're on YouTube, check out the description. If you're listening on the podcast, look at the show notes and we'll have all the links there. Guys, that's it for today, and I'll see you next week.